Curtis has kind of been through something that was a
Yep.
unique experience,
Yep.
multi-generational business. It's a great experience, but it wasn't all roses. It had its ups and downs. And you honestly thought, man, even just a couple of calming words might help put something into perspective a little bit different. Somebody who is from the outside as opposed to somebody because then there's no
Yeah.
skin in the game. Throwing that out there.
No, that's phenomenal, man. Like I'm just helping out somebody. I get a lot out of it too,
Yeah,
because I love
absolutely.
helping people and helping better their lives, through sharing my own experiences. And that's anything, whether I'm paid or not. You know what I mean? That's just good people, wanting to help other people.
Yeah.
So, Chris, for those that didn't get an opportunity to see the first interview, just give us a 5 or 6 minute overview of who you are and kind of what the background is.
Sure. So my name is Oliver Curtis Joseph. I go by Curtis. All my friends call me Curtis. Oliver's my government name. I was a fourth generation operator of Oliver C. Joseph Incorporated, which at the time when we sold it was the oldest Dodge Chrysler Jeep dealership in the world and known universe. And yeah, I was, like I say, fourth generation there. So that's kind of a little bit of my background. And we did that for a long time in our family, and then we ended up basically selling the franchise, and that's kind of my background. That was it was come to so my father, who he passed away when I was 13, and it was my uncle and I at the time who were owners together. My uncle being the majority owner and me being the minority owner. And the truth is my uncle Brad, great guy. We had good conversations all the way up, and it was really a general consensus. I think the old adage goes, people usually buy something for one reason, which is to make money, but they sell it for a million different reasons.
Yeah.
And the truth is that we had a million reasons, and various ones that we had gotten into. We came together, and kind of decided together.
And if you had to take a guess, if you go back to your dad and his father, was this, this is a business that pays the bills and provides for the family, and or was there a sense of like, this is our family? There's something special about this entity. Was it just a business, or was it a really part of the family kind of thing? It was.
Oh wow, it's a great question. I appreciate your question, Thor. I mean, honestly, it was part of our family's culture. I mean, it was not just a business, and so it's interesting when you have a situation like that, because then considerations that are outside of practical business sense become more important than they would be if you were just looking at black and red numbers on a piece of paper.
Yeah.
So it's not always about, what's your net profit, or, what's your ROE necessarily. It's about more than that. And so, yeah, it was definitely a part of our family culture for sure. I mean, it's part of who we were.
Yeah. And many dealerships have their name on them.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, there's your name.
Piece of the community. Yeah.
Right. As you transition into kind of the next chapter, as I like to call it, you close one chapter, you open another chapter. Was it difficult for you to establish a new identity? Because you've always been known as, you were working in the dealership picking weeds when you were 7, breaking every employment law possible. How do you go from that? You start a new chapter. How difficult was it to shift the identity of who you are, who you were becoming?
I'd say it was very difficult for me personally. It was difficult for a lot of different reasons, but I'll just kind of run through a few of them. The biggest reason it was difficult was that, as I had mentioned before, you go to sell one of these things, or in our case, a few of these things, and you're doing a lot of the work on it yourself while you're running the business. And the time, that you have for reflection gets minimized. And the time that you have for, planning that next shot gets minimized. And when I once we sold or whatever, I really had no idea. I was like, well, I'll just figure it out when we get there.
Yeah.
That sounds crazy, actually. I mean, I understand how crazy that sounds to rational, logical
Yeah.
people that are, moving around in their business. But that's honestly what happened to me. I've talked to a lot of guys, and it turns out it's not
No,
abnormal.
it's common. I mean, here's a big chunk of money, and it's like, what do I do now?
Yeah, yeah. And
I think
so
much more common than not.
yeah, and when you ask those questions, you have to have a strong set of core values to rely upon, which I'm really grateful that my family instilled in me a strong set of core values. So my identity, Curtis, in and as Curtis, it was obviously at the time when you're doing the business and you're in the community, it seems like, well, these two things are tied. But once you come out of that and you realize that, I'm I'm so much more than just a business. I'm, a father, a husband, a human being, a friend, a son, a brother, a businessman. What are the skills that I obtained in an organization like that, and who really am I, and where could I add value, and how could I do that? And so that whole thing started kind of coalescing, a year or two after, taking a breather, really, honestly. And we had a, 86-foot long, 800-ton train car built into the dealership that we had fixed out. It was really cool. And, so big, beautiful place. And, but with a lot of that, property, plants, and equipment or whatever, there was also, a lot of management that goes along with that.
Yeah.
Those are some things that, it was cool to take my daughter to the train car and her friends or whatever, and or we'd have, Boy Scout troops come and check out this cool thing, and I'd give them the history on where it was built, and and all this cool stuff. And that's it's a phase of my life that's that now we're out of. We don't really go there anymore, and because it's somebody else's thing.
Yeah.
You sold it in 2020,
Yeah.
right? Like towards the end of 2020?
Oh, I guess really, actually,
Very beginning?
yeah, somewhere like in the beginning, actually.
Right. So we see quite often that there is a period of easily 6 months where at post exit, where you take a little time off, but you have this pull to want to do something. And how did you kind of begin to walk us through that timeline a little bit of
Yeah.
kind of repurposing yourself?
First off, I got an amazing family and a really supportive peer group. And I think part of the reason why, and every situation is different, but I had mentioned to you before, I had had a pretty serious health scare
Oh yeah.
going up to, into the sale, which was one of the million reasons. What I didn't perhaps anticipate or expect was that, other people around me, like my family, for instance. You go from being kind of the business guy, and you're still the business guy, but you just you're not really doing too much. And I didn't really realize how well, I did. Of course, I realized intuitively, but I didn't, I guess, understand the effects of the dynamic in the family. For instance, the shift. And I had a lot of opportunities. My phone was ringing off the hook. Hey, what are you doing now? Hey, you want to do something here. Kind of knowing yourself to say, hey, you know what? Actually, no. Let me give it some space here. Let the dust settle and really see, what it is that I want to do. Where can I help the most? Where can I fit in the most?
Difference between the money that you earned while you're at the dealership, the money that you got for the sale of a dealership, and the money that you earn today. Does it feel different, or is it just money?
That's an interesting question, and I just don't look at it like that, and I'll tell you why.
Yeah.
It's because that there's this, I believe, there's this especially somebody like, for instance, we've been in the business. I'm fourth generation. My grandfather on my mother's side was from Croatia. He came to this country. He had less than $5 in his pocket. He was a butcher in New York. He went from being a butcher to wanting to go to med school. He became a radiologist, discovered cardiograph shadows, and was published, became a very, very prominent radiologist in the city. I mean, from nothing. Now, there's a tendency, there's a temptation to look at these two situations. Somebody born into a fourth generation business and then somebody who came to this country and started from scratch and built it up from nothing.
Yeah.
And to look at those as not necessarily equivalent, because well, one was starting from something, another guy was starting from nothing. But I actually don't look at it like that. I actually look at it like we all are relying on somebody previous to us. There is no, I mean, we're all doing it in different situations, but when we sit down at the table and we start playing the hand that we're dealt, the only difference is that we're just sitting down at the table for this period of time, and when our game is up, then we get up and leave.
Yeah.
And so I don't look at it too differently. I mean, like yes, you're correct. Yes, right now, all the, everything that I'm doing is wrought from my own two hands. But only but then again, can I really say that? Because, obviously there was a liquidity event that was based on 4 generations of hard work from my family side. Or also there were friends that called me up and said, hey man, what are you doing right now? Do you want to do something? And do you want to, and so there was all these things that are intact. And also, like, for instance, my wife, I had mentioned to you, she's first generation from Russia. And she started off, as a waitress, and now she's got, she's a global human resources manager for a tech firm. She didn't get there all on her. If you asked her, did you do it all yourself? She'd say, absolutely not. I had so and so help me. I had so and so, support from, my husband or from my family. And so I guess I don't really. To me, it's just a unit of utility. A dollar.
We'll work with a family, mother,
Yeah.
father. They've built up this business. It could be first, second, third generation. And they're like, everything we're doing today is so one day we can pass it along to you, you kids.
Mm-hmm.
And the kids are saying, I don't want anything to do with that business. Right.
Yeah.
So mom and dad have been working their entire lives to provide and then to transfer. And the kids are like, I don't want to do that. Well, why? I want to plow my own path. And we get them brought in a lot of times to talk to the families and try to figure out, what do we do now? What we've been working towards, that plan isn't working because Bobby and Sally don't want anything to do with the business. They want to, go to college and start their own path.
There's also the trend of, say, the Warren Buffetts of the world, where they want to give away a lot of their wealth before death. And I think there's a lot of reasons there, but sometimes it's so the next generation can have their own blank slate and create their own identity versus the baggage that might come with the wealth or the business. So there's a lot of different angles of passing it on to the next generation. One thing I'm curious about is now, the business was a terrific vehicle for passing along values within your family. And now you have your 2 daughters, Amelia and Alexandra. How are you thinking about, passing along values? I'm curious about, like, where your mind is wandering to of how you can kind of, you might not want the same exact experience for them that you had, or maybe you do. Like, how are you thinking about the next generation for yourself now?
Yeah, it's great. I was just having I was driving my daughter to school yesterday or whatever, and I was like, hey, if I was still in the car business, would you want to work? Would you want to work with me in the business? And she's like, yeah, you know what? Cars really aren't my thing. she's she's 7 years old, or whatever. And I was like, oh, all right, that's cool. I'm just asking, our family has always been creators. We've always created things. We've enjoyed that, be it music, art. A lot of our, like, for instance, we did all our advertising. And advertising was creating something. When we would go on trips, we would make long form films and movie. My grandfather was a fantastic filmmaker. And in fact, some of his films going way back now, I'm pretty sure he made a movie about, it was called Wyoming All White, about a family trip that my dad and my grandma and my grandpa went, and my uncle went on to Wyoming in the 70s during this huge blizzard. And he was like the only guy that caught footage of this blizzard. And I'm pretty sure the Smithsonian actually requested some footage of this film, so because it was like this little snippet. So we, what we do is we try to take that zest for life and capturing, and savoring those moments of life and impart it to the children. That's kind of, how we do it. In addition to, the biggest thing is what you're just trying to raise good human beings. And the thing that I've kept falling back on, and, I was a Boy Scout, and I was really, really lucky that I was in that whole thing. And then my family also taught me good values. But I am pleased to say that I have, been able to maintain, the integrity of my values, through the hard time, through the hard times and the good, which is equally as difficult to maintain that. And so that's the biggest thing I really want to try to make sure, because that's all you can really try to do with kids. One of the great things about a family business has nothing to do with money. And it's the fact that you can, if you've got a kid, you can give them, there's a low risk environment for them to really learn some really great business skills. And you can come in and say, hey, this is what a statement looks like, and the kid's 10, or whatever, or hey, we're setting up a new computer network. Could you help? Those are all, I literally set up the computer network at our dealership. You know what I mean? And those are things that, man, it's, how do you put a price on that? But those are some of the things that I'm trying to do to impart that family culture, because we try to live uniquely, and I believe we are a unique family. Every family is unique, and so, but those are some of the tactics that we do.
Vested interest in this because I'm trying to raise 2 little daughters as well. So,
yeah.
Hey man, we're just brainstorming right here.
No, I really like that. And what a great question. How to impart that culture. I think it's, I think that the thing that I'm right now, the thing that I can do is I think we have to be able to look forward mostly, but also have an eye on the past. Of course, car business, we have the famous analogy that you look through the windshield, but you have to check the rear view mirrors. The rear view mirrors are smaller than the windshield. You're spending most of your time looking going forward. And for me, with family culture, how I conceptualize that is, it's important for me to create and to show that my children that I'm able to create in a lot of different areas, in business, in art, and whatnot. And if I can do that and get it down, then even if they're not ready for it now, it's there, and they can access that, and they can say, oh, wow, okay, so this is a glimpse into who my father really was. Listen to this song. Or this is a glimpse into who my father really was. And who my father really is a product of who my grandfather and my great-grandfather and my great-great-grandfather were.
We're going into, passing down, transferring wealth is one thing, of monetary wealth, but the passing along of knowledge of wealth is just as important.
Values,
experiences,
skills,
and you're giving your family space and being very intentional for creating these memories together, right? I since our last conversation, I have talked about you picking weeds so many times.
They are. I don't know if you guys can see them there, but they're there,
right?
The scars.
Yeah.
And for me, like, I have specific memories of the smell of fresh cut grass and spending that time with my family. And who knows, for Amelia, it might be sitting in the truck listening to the music that Papa is playing himself. And you don't know what these specific memories are going to happen for the child, but you're giving lots of space to kind of for them to create them themselves.
Yeah,
which totally. I love.
Like I had said I think in the first one, I think I probably said it, that the things that I hated I now love, and the things I love I now hate. That definitely was the case at the time. I hated pulling plastic out of cars on a 110-degree day. When I saw that truck coming full of shiny new cars, most people would be like, oh my gosh, look at this beautiful brand new inventory that we're going to sell. And look at the trucks are filled with it. And all I could think of, oh man, I'm going to be in there and it's going to be 200 degrees and I'm pulling out the plastic, and so I do think that, it's, but now I look fondly on that. And, I agree with you. I do think that having that work ethic is critical.
We have to, sometimes we have to get serious, right?
Yeah,
so
exactly
then we can
right.
enjoy those other times to be creative, to daydream.
Yeah.
So, and nobody likes to talk about death. Thor and I kind of say this a lot, nor do we. But, sometimes we have to kind of just play in some of these things. Where are you at in kind of creating that blueprint of just transparency within your family, of passing down the knowledge of, if something were to happen, this would be my wishes, or this is how you do the next steps? Have you gone down that path yet?
You gotta be transparent with your family. It's so important to have the conversations with your family about everything. My wife and I are really close, thank God. And we've been married. We've had our ups and downs like every marriage,
Sure.
Just like business. It's not all just straight up. But when I got when I got sick, we got very serious about trying to figure out, what was going to happen and how that was going to look. That was super critical. Then after that, hey, if I die, then, here's what happens. That conversation's actually easier, truth be told.
So we have a 12-month consulting blueprint that we do with family businesses.
Okay.
And it starts off with, where is everything? People have crypto wallets. I have crypto wallets. My kids would never know where to find the crypto wallet, let alone the key, right? So it's like documenting everything. Who are all the advisors? What's the first steps to do? Where are the passwords? Where are the bank accounts? All of that kind of stuff. Right. And then we progress into, how are we going to take this business that you currently have? Who do you want to pass it down to? If there's 3 or 4 kids, are they all going to be involved? Which one's going to be the president? Who's going to be the CEO? Who's, now how are we going to work with all the family members on that? So there's a lot.
Okay.
The first one is, what mistakes or what things could have been done better by the parents when handing down or transitioning the business to the next generation? And then from the kids' perspective, what could they have done better or differently to make that transition work?
I'll tell you, well, the first thing that jumps to my mind is there's a tendency to underpay the family members.
Ooh, that's a good one.
That's just the reality. I don't know if you guys see that in your business.
Yeah, we do. We do.
Yeah.
100%. Yes.
Now, I say underpay. It's all relative, right?
Yeah.
I mean, so what I mean by that, though, is especially when these businesses get big, how exactly are you going to get this business into new hands? It sounds like a very obvious question, but it's so important, and will the person that you want it to have the financial wherewithal to actually do that?
Yeah.
And there's as you're in the business, so there's a lot of different ways to do that.
Yep.
But people don't think about that. People don't talk about that.
Yep.
Because while we were discussing the virtues and vices of working in the business from the ground up or whatever, I think that one of the things that sticks is that you basically you keep your money in the business or whatever, and retained earnings, and you're trying to strengthen the balance sheet all the time. And especially if you're a family that's modest and doesn't really need much to be happy or whatever, you may be setting your kids up in a situation where you want to get the business to them, and there's not really a good way to do it.
Yeah.
Depending on the situation.
Yeah.
Situation, of course. And so, and as you know, all of these things are completely situational. It's why gentlemen like you and Trevor are so valuable to the people that you help, is because you actually are able to look at that situation. But that's the first thing that jumps to my mind. How do you want to compensate them? Maybe you don't want them going wild with wild compensation, but maybe it takes place in another form. Shares, increase share over time, or whatever you do. But consider that if you really do want them to be on banking relations. I mean, oh my gosh. I mean, the list goes on and on. Yeah. What the kids could do better, as far as, in the business, that's a better question for a guy like my uncle. I think that and again, it depends on the person, but I see, a lot of these younger people put a whole lot of pressure on themselves, and that ends up manifesting a lot of that can cause some problems down the road. And, it's better to take it with all due responsibility and seriousness, but don't take it too seriously.
Yeah.
And so maybe that's one thing that would come to mind, but yeah, so.
Curtis, this has been amazing as always. I could keep going.
I really, like I say, I'm really appreciative of you guys carving out the time again, and we'll talk again soon. All right.
Thanks, man.
All right. Yeah. Bye now.
Bye.